Over the last couple of days, here in the UK, we have had a Sky original documentary talking about the alien autopsy from 1995. Now, this got me kind of interested in, is there anything else, which has been out there and all this kind of stuff. And with this channel, obviously we're doing the, paranormal, we're doing ghosts, we're doing all this kind of stuff. I was like, you know what? Let's take a look at something else which came out in 1997. And I'm not too sure if some of these people or if you've seen this sort of stuff, but we're actually talking about this. And this is the Victor Alien Interview. And as I said, this came out in 1997. Supposedly it was made in the early 90s, way before the Ray Santilli alien autopsy video came out. And I was like, you know what? This could be real. And so I thought I'd just play it first for you and then we'll talk about it.
Alright, we're looking at the interview suite at S4. It's kept dark for the comfort of the aliens. The figure who is just barely visible in the left foreground is the telepath, and behind the camera is a raked seating area for observers. Although in this case, I believe the only other person present was a military aide. The alien is seated behind a glass partition in a biocontainment area, which is maintained at Biosafety Level 2, the lowest designation. That's primarily for the protection of the aliens, not us. The theory is that if they were going to infect us with an alien bug, it would have happened 50 years ago. In fact, all the indications are the aliens eliminated microbial and viral life from their own ecosystem long ago. They aren't susceptible to our diseases directly, but it has been shown that microbes can reproduce and form colonies within their respiratory systems, which tends to exacerbate the debilities they seem to suffer anyway in our environment. In fact, you can see here the alien is beginning to flag. The interview was not going well. The telepath was trying to clarify some points from a previous interview, but he wasn't receiving coherent responses. As you can see, the being is in real distress. At this point, the telepath is sending out a message to the medical staff. He's trying to communicate with the alien, but he's getting no response. There's very little he can do. There's no direct connection between his space and the biocontainment area. That's the aide stepping in on the right. The medical staff should be there by now. They're slow in responding. There they are. I have to say the medical personnel at S4 are less than first rate. They tend to be selected for their willingness to keep secrets rather than their medical competence. By the way, he's not shining that light into the eyes. It looks that way, but in fact he's checking for hemorrhaging around the eye sockets and in the nasal cavity. I'm sorry. It's very hard for me to watch this.
Yeah, it's very well made, isn't it? It's very, very well made. Obviously, in the 90s, when the alien autopsy video came out, and it wasn't just a video, I actually remember sitting down with my mum, my dad, and my sister, and my grandfather, my Grampy Terry, when this was actually put out in the world. And it was such a big thing. And it was, when I saw it, I was 9 years of age, and my sister was 12, and we're watching it, and it's just like, what is happening? And again, my dad was like, oh yeah, we're gonna watch this, and my dad's like, oh, definitely fake, come on, no such thing, and all this kind of stuff. And it was like, right, okay. But then other things started coming out, and the one thing which made the alien autopsy documentary that came out a couple of days ago, which has been quite a big hit here in the UK, is just the fact that they got an interview with a guy who saw a very similar alien autopsy video in 1978. The photographer was actually called Mike Maloney, and he was Fleet Street's most decorated lensman, and he makes a string of shocking revelations that will blow the UFO debate wide open, and that he was allegedly shown an actual alien autopsy video in 1978 while he was in LA to photograph Daryl Hannah. And he says that he was invited to lunch by some studio executives. He was seated alongside 4 of Walt Disney's original animators, including Ward Kimball, the man who drew Mickey Mouse, and he was also a well-known UFO enthusiast. They became friends over subsequent meetings and all this kind of stuff. But then, it actually misses out the main part, which is this part by here, where it just says, he asked Mike if he would like to see a film of an alien autopsy. Well, with this, what made all of this go a little bit like, oh, okay, and this was the fact that it was the early hours of the morning in 1978 when he was summoned, basically, from his hotel room in the middle of the night downstairs to a waiting limo. The limo took him to a suburban house where there was, there was flying saws and everything else, but he was taken to the suburban house, and here there was a 16mm projector, cans of film bearing the United States Army Eagle insignia where they were waiting. He told Mike that he was only one of 9 people ever to be seen the footage. And he said the camera panned and the camera panned around. That's when you're like, oh, there was an alien in the corner. And it was moving. Its eyes were closed. Its head was looking down, but its legs were moving and its arms were moving. I would say semi-conscious, but either purposely moving its legs and its arms or in a spasm. The camera didn't dwell on it long enough to pick up the detail. Today, I would have taken a few pictures with my phone. Now, with this, the reason I bring up this and the alien autopsy part is because Ray Santilli, the guy who had this, who as he said, he reconstructed it, but this is what he saw. And the reason I'm tying this in with the alien interview that we just saw is because Ray Santilli, he actually went and saw the original footage now of supposed this alien autopsy was in 1991 or 1992. And the reason I bring that up is because this video was supposedly made around that time. So around 91, 92. So it makes everything go, ooh, right, okay then. And with the way that this alien looks, where we just go back to by here, which is a lot of things like, this is what, everyone draws aliens, and this is what they think, and this is how they look. Well, Mike Maloney, the photographer, when he saw the alien autopsy when it came out in 95 on TV, Fox News in America, everywhere, that was one of the only things he said that didn't look like the video he saw. And that he was like, that alien, it didn't look like the ones that I saw. And the ones that he supposedly saw in the 1978 video where he was in this house looked like this alien. Because when this came out, Maloney was like, that's the alien I saw. That shape, that look. Which, it throws so many things out there, and it's like, is this real? Is it not real? And my mind is just of so many questions. And the way I look at it is, if people can believe in God and religion and all this kind of stuff, surely they would be thinking that aliens exist, And when I say aliens and obviously these other organisms, I'm not just talking about alien looking like this or looking like the one from the other video. There has to be life out there. We cannot be just the only living organism in this universe, in all of space and time, because we have no idea how big it actually is. And I was just seeing this, and my mind, it just keeps racing. So I was like, right, okay, then what is going on with this? And then I came across a Medium article where it's absolutely insane, because this article was actually written this year. So why the most controversial video in ufology refuses to behave like a hoax. Dismissing it was easy, until it wasn't. And there is so many things in this. It's like, oh my god. And first of all, it's a great article. I'll leave the link below because, as you can see, it's a very, very long article. And he goes on, opens up with, obviously, it doesn't establish that it's authentic and everything else. But now that we live in an era where AI is becoming quite hard to distinguish between if it's real or not. The one thing up for AI I always go to is when we saw Will Smith eating spaghetti a couple of years ago. I think it was like 3 years ago. That looked absolutely terrible. And now you look at it, and where you've actually got Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise on a rooftop fighting. And the only thing that gives it away that it is fake, that it is AI, is that the fighting is atrocious. That's it. That is literally it. And he goes on saying that he doesn't like fake videos and all this kind of stuff. But then obviously recently we actually had former President Barack Obama, where he addressed the subject directly in the podcast and stated, aliens, they are real. I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept at Area 51. So the comment was widely circulated. It was wildfire. It went everywhere. And again, to be honest with you, I believe him when he says, they are real. I just haven't seen them. And again, it's kind of interesting because it takes me back to Independence Day, that when Jules, he says about his son, my son David, you wouldn't be around here now if it wasn't for him. And he goes, you knew in the 50s, what was it, Roswell, New Mexico. And, Bill Pullman, and he's like, there's no recovered spacecraft. There's no aliens recovered. There's nothing. And the other guy, he goes, that's not entirely accurate. When they turn up at Area 51, and he's like, why wasn't I told about this? 2 words, Mr. President, plausible deniability. Which, to be honest with you, if you got a president who's only going to be in for 4 years, and you've seen things, or you're told of things, you are going to be like, yeah, we can't tell things, because you know things, and people are going to ask you things, and they're going to ask you questions about certain things. But with this, though, going down in the article, they've actually got one where it's been very, very contrast and brightness lit up. And he does talk about, why the most controversial video, it refuses to behave like a hoax. And he goes through it. And he's like, it looks fake to be too fake, if that makes any sense. And he says, for many years, I did not revisit the judgment that this was fake. But then it goes down to the changed informational landscape. And this is where it says, in recent years, several developments have entered the public record that materially alter how claims involving secrecy must be assessed. And they're asked, is the US government hiding aliens? Yes, non-human biologics. And going for the video then, the basic claim and why it matters. So the video was filmed April 22nd, 1991, so there we go, at approximately 3:15. It depicts the medical and psychological interrogation of a non-human biological entity. The interview was conducted under the authority of the US military and intelligence agencies, which we're going to talk about this in a moment. The footage bears a classification marking in DNI 27. The material surfaced publicly in 97, 6 years after it was recorded, and it was delivered anonymously by a source identifying himself only as Victor. And it goes on to say that it entered the public domain, and again, people just started looking into it, ripping it apart. Which, if you think about it, if it's out there, people are going to do that. They really are. But I just want to come back to this part here, the US military and intelligence agencies. The reason I want to go back to that is in the alien autopsy scandal documentary, they actually talked to a United States retired Air Force special agent. And this special agent, he actually states that he was also shown an alien autopsy video in the 70s. And he goes, me and the other people who are in the room, we were told that we are going to be seeing something which we're going to laugh at and we're going to think is fake. They watch it. He said it was like a 9-minute video in total. And we watched it and we started laughing. But we were like, right, okay, this seems interesting. And the guy who was there telling him and showing him the video, he was like, this is real. This was done in the late 40s. And then they were shown other things from the early 50s. And they were like, this is what we got. And what it was in this alien autopsy, when they were shown the actual Fox broadcast of it in 1995, the Fact or Fiction, with Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek, he was like, this must be the one I saw. And he said that it was a military cameraman who offered the video to Ray Santilli. And Ray Santilli was like, yeah, okay, I'll buy it. And when they were watching it, the actual retired special agent, he was there and he stated in this documentary, it was the one I saw. And the thing with that, what made it go even more like, oh, right, okay, is what the Mike Maloney, the photographer, said. Everything looked the same, apart from the alien. Now let's just go back to the actual alien autopsy video itself and what Mike Maloney was talking about. And by he says that the unforgettable experience meant when Mike saw the alien autopsy, he knew it was fake. The living alien he had seen propped in the corner was not there, and the body on the slab looked completely different. When I saw the online version, I was pretty convinced it wasn't real. The dissection was almost like it was latex. Now, he goes back to, with Ward, that his conviction that the footage he was shown was genuine, and that was because of Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick was Mike's neighbor. And Mike asked him, he goes, I remember having a beer with Stanley. I talked him through everything I knew about the film. And I said, what do you think, Stanley? Do you think it was fake? He said, no. What you saw was real, because in 1947, they didn't have the ability to fake films at that level. Which is very, very true. Now, seeing that there and that, obviously, Stanley Kubrick, he's in myth and legend. There's so much going on, especially with the American government, that supposedly he actually recorded and created the moon landing. When Armstrong and Buzz and all them went there, that was all fake, supposedly, and it was all filmed, and Stanley Kubrick is the one that made it. And then The Shining was his letter to people to say, no, I faked the moon landing, look at this is real. And it's like, oh my god, there is so much going on. But it goes back to Mike with the Ward, who was the guy who showed him the video, and he says that he actually had a physical piece of the spacecraft from Roswell, and he claimed the authorities were watching him because of it. He said he had a piece of the UFO which was totally illegal, and he described it as about 2.5 feet long, cylindrical, and it was chrome and it was hard as nails. But you could crunch it up in your hand like a piece of cardboard, and when you let go, it reverted back to its original state. Yeah, there's so much going on with all of this, and I really, really want these things to be real. This video that we've seen of the alien and all this, I would love it to be real, and then all of a sudden people like, we've seen this for the last, next year, it's 29 years, it's 3 decades, you know? And it's like, holy hell, 3 decades has happened, 30 years. And it would be absolutely amazing to be like, it's real. We've actually got them. And it's interesting to see that this has come out now, and there he is, that's Mike Maloney. He claims that he's the one who saw the real video. And if you haven't seen the Alien Autopsy Scandal documentary, it's 3 episodes. They're about 55, 57 minutes long each. I do urge you to give them a watch, because it speaks to a lot of people who were involved, and just the way that they did it, and the way that Ray Santilli still to this day, he's like, I've got actual film that I was shown because we had to reconstruct it because, well, 50 years in a tin, that old nitrate film stock, it's terrible. It's, you like he said, you can just grab it and pull it out and all the film will just fall off. It'll crumble like biscuits because, again, it's been oxidized because of the air. And seeing that so many people are still talking about this 31 years later, it's absolutely amazing. So I will be probably looking more into this as well because there's so many more things out there regarding this. And what I would like to do, I would like to try and get a couple of, like, not streams, but like sit-down talks with people who are actually involved in the UFO community, because I think they would have some of the best stories and some of the best info on it overall. But guys, let us know what you think about this down below. Do you think the below video is real? Would you like it to be real? Do you believe in aliens? Let us know down below, folks. As always, my name is Dan. Take care, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.